Hi there, thanks for joining us. This is Sahid with New Bloom Solutions and the host of The Bloom Show. Again, the purpose of the show is to connect, inspire, and innovate the floral industry through inspirations and connections and community. And it's a place for people to share, just share indiscreetly and share as much as they can and as they want without reserve. I believe that our industry needs more information and education and connections. So that's why we've created this. So thank you for joining us today. Truly appreciate it. Today we are having Bart David. As you might have noticed, the theme of the month has been company culture, empathy, and just everything having to do with the customer experience with internally and externally. Bart David, I ran into him through one of his videos. I was very impressed by him. Not only does he have floral industry experience, he also has the passion in helping develop companies and individuals into understanding their business, understanding their why. I'll let him explain a little better, but that is what Bart David does. And one thing that really took me that he said was, we need to stop being less arrogant about our industry and start being more empathetic about our industry. And that's something that really struck me well with Bart. So help me bring him on. He is the founder of Rethink and the Flower Cure, two very innovative companies, which they offer very innovative services as well. So let me bring him in to talk a little bit more. Give me a sec. Hi, Bart.
Hey, Saeed. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me, man. Thanks for taking your time. I see the amazing flowers in the background.
Yes, indeed.
I have to
One of my
jump to
clients sent me these flowers,
that.
right? Awesome
Yeah, that's
roses by
beautiful.
Qualisa, by the way.
Qualisa, what is that?
Qualisa is a
What?
really great farm, but
No, what's the flower? What's the
the
rose?
roses in the back.
Yeah, I know, but
Uh-huh.
what's the name? Do you know or no?
Oh, that one they just gave me yesterday,
Okay, it's a
so I have
stunning
to get to
rose.
know it. Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
it's a stunning rose. It's a big rose. It's beautiful. So Bart, thanks for joining us, man. Let me ask you a couple questions. Again, it's really about connecting and inspiring our floral industry and just letting them know of other resources that are out there. So one question is simple: is how did your journey to the flower industry start? I know you have experience in the flower industry. That's why I like you so much for the service that you sell. So tell us about your experience. How did you come to the flower industry?
Okay, so well, before flower industry, I was in hospitality and real estate, and I met this beautiful girl in Miami. I think that was 1996, and her parents were in flowers. So at one point, after a long distance relationship, I got married, and I got married to the flower business as well, right? So her parents had a flower farm. They still have it. Unfortunately, my father-in-law passed away, and became part of the company, and we started growing it and shipping around Japan, all around the world, and that's how I got into flowers. But I had no idea about flowers, right? So I had to start growing flowers, understanding the business, which in the beginning was frustrating. You come from nightlife and then into a world that is very different, right? You have flowers and you have 1 week to ship it. You can't keep it like a Tupperware. So it's very dynamic, and I really love that business. That's where I learned everything.
But that's how you got in. But then you pivoted. So tell us in one sentence, what do you do? What does your company do?
Okay, so in those days, my strength was the customer experience. And I felt that as an industry, we needed to set new standards. But you can't improve the customer experience without improving to wow levels the employee experience. You can't expect customer experience just like that. You have to work on the employee experience. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do next. I like to write different chapters in my life, and I said that this is the chapter I'm gonna write right now. And I started that about 5 years ago.
That's awesome. And then explain to us a little further, what is employee experience? Because we're very in tune with customer experience, or we think we are. What is employee experience?
So the employee experience are all the touch points that you have with your team within the company. Every touch point, from looking for the talent to the onboarding to how you train them to the entire all levels of attitude. It's all the behaviors It's all the habits, all the rituals you have within your company that we design. And then with that, you create a culture. Culture is the result of the employee experience.
Culture is the result of employee experience. So what's your definition of of company culture then?
Well, a culture, it goes pretty much similar to the employee experience, right? It's the rules that you set, the standards of how to behave, how you do things. It's the style that you operate within the company. So that's where it comes in, the behaviors, the habits, the rituals, the attitude of the people that you hire. I think that culture also starts from who to hire and who not to hire. And then once you have the team in place, is to put them in the right position.
And so the theory of hiring for company culture intentionally, is that a true theory? And how do you kind of get to those steps?
Well, that's why people talk a lot about, there's a thing about Simon Sinek once said, I think it's the golden circle, and start with why. I think once you have clear which is the why, you can get to work and you can figure out what are the values and what type of people we need to get on the bus to fulfill those values. But I look at more as a titanium circle. I say start with who. Because you could start with why, but you have to have the right people. If you have the right people within your company, tomorrow you could go from flowers into automotors or hospitality industry because they have that right mindset, that attitude, right? So I prefer to hire attitudes versus skills or talents because the skills can be taught, right? But the attitude is something that was built up for many decades from home, from the friends they hung around with. And that's not something easy to shape. So for me, culture really starts with the attitudes. I actually measure it in 6 levels. The basic ones are energy, enthusiasm, and empathy.
I'm glad you said empathy. Okay.
Yeah. And then you go into effort, endurance, and expertise. So these are 6 E's. And that's what we look for.
So explain to us what empathy really is.
Well, look, I think in business, I understand empathy. And I've always had a problem with empathy. When it was like someone was sick, I didn't really feel how to act around them. And so I started diving deeper into empathy. I wanted to get better at empathy myself, right? And it's not about just putting yourself in the other person's shoes, right? It's understanding what they say, what they think, what they do, but also what they believe. And I think when you mix that together and you can look at them from different perspectives, that's when you have empathy. The problem with empathy is that we always look at people from our own perspective. And to really live empathy, it's understanding that, okay, this is the way this person is seen in life. They were educated in a different way. They were taught different standards. Let me understand that first. And then I can understand how they look at life, how they look at work, how they look at serving people, because now I understand it better. So I think it's a mix of those things. And then you can really start living empathy. But it's not an easy thing. It's something that I work on every day, by the way.
But empathy is also, because I look at it in a marketing perspective, empathy is also putting yourself in the shoes of your customer. So empathy actually works both ways, internally and externally, correct?
Yeah, correct. I believe that part of empathy, when we talk about business, it's also being an expert enough, which I said about the 6 E's, to understand which are the pain points of my customer. Understand those pain points, and then have the attitude to help them solve those friction points. I think that's a great tool for empathy within business, which is like identifying the pain points or friction points and giving the service of eliminating them, making it easier for them, making it faster, making it accurate and super friendly, which are the basics of service. I think that's a big part of empathy within the industry. Now, on the other side, I think a week ago, I talked about empathy from the buyer's perspective with growers in South America. That if the weather changes, you should have empathy, also understanding that there's things that we can control and things that we can't control. Yet over time, we will be better in controlling those external factors. But we're not ready for that yet. And maybe from the buyers, right? Maybe they can help with tools right? That would be empathy. Like, hey, this is a great tool that is working in California for tomatoes. Why don't we start using this, right? So I think empathy is also starting to share information, but it only happens when you understand the pain points.
And I guess it has to do, we're going kind of off, but it has to do also with communication and opening that channel of communication and also being empathetic to understanding that if you're hearing something you don't like, there might be a reason why it's being said, correct?
Yeah, correct. I love what you say. Like, look, you can't have empathy if there's no signal. Now, I think in the US, you all have 5G. Everybody's promoting it at least, right? But if you have a 2G or just one bar signal, which is part of communication, right? I talk about that a lot. I call that trust. Without trust, there can't be empathy. And without trust, there can't be any communication. So I think even before the empathy, you have to get better at asking better questions and really listening to what people say. Because if you really want to have empathy, stop always responding right away. Just listen, understand, ask deeper questions. Take the time and the space to do that. Because if you really want to listen, but you don't take the time to do it, it's never going to happen. So set up the signal first and then really communicate. Find out what way to communicate.
Okay. So one of my questions is, what book would you recommend business owners in our industry and even salespeople to read that will give them more insight? I have a book that I'm reading every night now, but what book would you recommend?
Well, I do a lot of audiobooks, so there are so many. And actually, I'd like to change that answer. I think the best book is the one that you're writing right now. Not reading, writing. It's your book. It's your legacy. It's your chapter. I think that's the book we need to focus on. I think we're trying to read so many books, and I'm a big advocate of learning, by the way. But there's so much information, and it's hard to implement all that information because we're not really experts in organizing all that information. Like, I've probably heard or read so many books, and now I'm starting with Evernote to put tags so I can find all the great ideas that I had there. But I think what we need to get better at is at writing our own book, because that's the book that everybody's going to want to read. That's the book your kids are going to want to read when they're older, and that's the book they're going to want to share with your grandkids. I think that's more exciting, and that pushes you to become that better version. So I would say focus on your own book and start writing it.
Great. I have to say, I'm not writing my own book yet, but Emotional Intelligence 2.0 has really opened my eyes up to just that. And it's a struggle sometimes, is not even thinking of your answer until someone even finishes theirs. So it takes a lot of work. It's not easy at all.
And just to go back on the book, don't start with the beginning, start with the end. How do you want that book to finish? And then it's easy to reconstruct, reverse engineer everything and figure out how that chapter looks like. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and it's easier to put in the action. So maybe somebody wants to put culture or family experience or business experience, whatever that is. You know the title, and then it's easier to start writing the actions required to go to the end. So start with the end.
Of your own story, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, gotcha.
And go big.
Yeah, go big or go home. But I saw you created the sales experience, and it was really interesting to me, and I had the experience of going into it as a 17-year veteran at this point of the flower industry and a salesperson, and a true believer in having to develop your team. I went into it and it was very realistic to our flower industry. So I really appreciated that, because it wasn't an outside company coming into the flower industry and speaking about how we should treat our customers. The little house with the roof and the little dog, that doesn't work. Or it does in some cases, but our industry is very dynamic and different. So can you talk a little bit about that briefly, just of the importance, how easy it is, and how you've set it up, which I really like it because it's a team thinking, it's a company view. So explain that a little bit more, please.
Okay, so, well, first of all, thanks for joining the sales experience, because you already experienced it, right? The reason, this is thanks to COVID, right? So during COVID, in the first 3 months, I was like, okay, if something that really fuels me is to do business and to be active and to go like 100%, right? I understood that within COVID, me sitting down, not doing too much is not my style, right? So I had to come up with something that could keep me going and to generate the impact that I want at the end of that chapter in the book I'm talking about. So I was like, how can we do something of all the knowledge that I have over all these years, put it all together into one place, but design something that never stops? So when I designed the sales experience, I designed videos and how-tos with action tools of how to design that customer experience, but also how to work on the culture, how to work on the employee experience, and all these things, which was not easy. I never did any like videos and start recording and then repeat it again and polish it again. But the main essence was like, if we want to have a great future for the floral industry, we need to focus on that experience, the employee and the customer experience. But that's a never-ending journey. So in March, the course only continues to grow. So in March, it continues to grow. So you have self-awareness in there, you have culture, you have follow-up strategies, you have how to set bigger goals and how to set the OKRs to crush those goals. There is so much in there, but it's never going to end. Like I don't want to hit stop on the button. I just want to add every 3 months, add more courses. So add more value, because along the journey, we still see different friction points. And when we see friction points, boom, we make a course. So this is based on the friction points within the industry and how to reduce or eliminate those friction points. And many people are on the program. I think right now we have 400 plus users. The thing is that we only allow teams to come in, because teamwork makes the dream work, right? So if one does it, it's like taking one bad fish out of the tank and you clean that fish, you put it back in, it's going to be contaminated again, right? And I'm not saying that there's bad people, but this is a fish example. So if you want to train someone, you better train everyone, not just the one preferred person within the company. So I could go deep in the sales experience, but this is more a conversation of questions here. So
no,
people
I
can
get
always
it.
go.
I love your passion, man. So I love your passion. So thank you for that. One thing that just keeps on popping up to my head is intentionality. We all think we have a company culture. We all think we have a company motto. But what's the importance of being intentional with all of this?
Yeah. So
That's my question to you.
First of all, if you want to be intentional, look, you have a business. Maybe one day that business is going to grow. It's going to have more people. Maybe one day somebody sells the business. Whatever happens, right? I think that culture is the only thing that continues to live when you stop existing. It's more the legacy you're building and the example you're setting for the industry. I believe that the future of business, and any business, right, whether that is flower business or hospitality, real estate, whatever it is going to be defined by the culture. Like the companies that have a wow culture, that have that attitude, that have those people that want to go like an extra billion miles, that want to shoot for the stars because they want to land on the moon or maybe land on Mars like Elon Musk. I think those are the ones that are going to redefine the standards. I think to have this wow culture, it's not about sitting down and looking like these are the values, put it on the wall, the vision and the mission. That's not culture, right? It's sitting down and saying, okay, how do we treat people? How do we treat people when nobody's watching? How do we work? How do we follow up on people? How do we make people feel appreciated? Like start paying attention to all the details that all have to do with the experience. Because that's what people always remember about your business. It's how they treated you. It's that experience they left behind. You can have the good experience, the great experience, or the amazing experience. I'm not even talking about the bad experience. It's about setting the bar so high of how you treat people within the company and the customers and just redefining the standards.
Yeah,
I think
agree. Go ahead, Bart, please, go ahead.
It's really focusing on culture, because you know that culture is the only thing that is going to generate impact, the positive impact. Because it's those people that worked with you within your company that love the style, right? And they start a new business, Now they hire 1,000 people, and that impact starts to grow. It's the ripple effect, right? I think culture is that one drop, that stone that goes in and causes the ripple effect. I mean, for me, it's all about positive impact.
I know we had kind of some questions, but I've left that a while ago because I get really interested in this. The one thing I've been saying lately is that our industry seems to be a very transactional industry versus empathetic. We believe a lot in the relationship, but I think that we could be more intentional in building those relationships and making less transactional than more supportive and empathetic. I don't know if I'm explaining that right. I hope I am. Does that make any
Yeah,
sense to
no,
you?
I definitely agree. I believe that if we as an industry want to do something wow within this decade, which has this decade had a crazy start, let's admit it. If we want to do something amazing and we want to stand out within all different industries, we have to redesign the experience, because the experience is part of the empathy, the energy, the enthusiasm, and all those things. If you don't redesign and rethink the experience, like a lot of businesses are going to continue to close. Like people are going to buy experiences. I believe that the future is based on two things: customization and experience. If you can focus your business on delivering that, people are going to be loyal to you because they can get cheap, they can get fast, they can do everything on Amazon, they can do everything wherever they like. The people are willing to pay for experiences. Like, who doesn't want to pay right now for a great experience? And that's going to stick around for a long time.
I'll go to Disneyland right now, man. Like I'll pay for any
Right?
experience, and I get that very much so. So that kind of goes into the question that I usually ask is, where do you see our industry in the next 5 years? Positive or where do you see our industry in the next five?
I think if people put culture, experience, all these things, if they put that first, like nobody can even imagine what can happen to the industry. It's going to be like at a whole other level. But the future really depends on the actions we put in today and the goals we set for tomorrow. Those are the things that are going to shape the future. So we could talk so long about the future of flowers, but what it really depends on is what actions you're going to take today. Like, are you really going to take culture serious? Are you really going to do something different for your people? Because when we do evaluations within flower industry, 92% of people are unhappy. And that reflects to the customer, right? Because they're not really sad either, but they're like in between, right? Like you ask them a question like, how often are you happy within the company? Once a week, twice a week. What do we need to do to make that every day? That you're fueled, that you come to work and you're like, let's go, let's do this, right? With excitement, with that energy and enthusiasm. I think it really depends. The future of 5 or 10 years depends on what we do today, what goals we set for tomorrow, and reduce the time between idea and execution. Reduce that to right now. I think way too many people say culture, and it's like a nice thing to have, right? But that's where it stays. Nothing happens. So if you have that idea, execute right now. Zero excuses. I'm allergic to excuses when it comes to that. Like if you really want it, then go get it.
And again, going back to it, it's being very intentional with it and making sure, because there might be people that say, we have a company culture, ask an employee. I challenge you to ask your employee what your company culture is or what your motto is. Ask an employee. If your employee doesn't know, and I'm not the expert here, but if the employee doesn't know, then do you really have a company culture? And do you really have a motto? I'm asking you now then, I guess. If your employee doesn't know and your staff doesn't know or hasn't been reminded, is that even company culture then?
No, that's not culture. It's just a bunch of values and vision and mission on the wall. That's pretty much it. I do believe that if I'm no culture expert, I'm on the road to be an experience expert, because that's what's going to generate culture in the future. It's the result, right? And there's different styles of culture, cultures of learning, cultures of authority, which is like military type of culture. Not such a big fan of that. But I believe first you have to look at the culture in your home. What is the culture that you set within your house? Every household has its own culture. It's how you raise your kids. It's the standards. It's the habits. It's the rituals you have. That's already a bit part of the culture. And I always tell people, if you look at your own culture, a lot of companies, they have 80 countries in the culture, right? But they never set the standards when people came in. They never set the rules. I think if the first thing you want to do for culture is set the rules when it comes to behavior. These are the rules for the attitude, right? These are the habits. And these are our standards. This is how we treat people, and this is how we don't treat people. If you start working on that, you can start taking the first steps. Because I've worked with companies, you don't create culture in a year. It's something that always continues to be built on. But if you can start with the habits, the behaviors, and the rules of the culture, that works. But you need to visualize that. How does that look like? How do we behave? Like, sit the people down, start having those culture meetings or experience meetings. You don't need like fancy courses, right? You just need to take action. But if you can have a cool course or you can read a good book on that, it will be more structured and you will get there faster.
I guess it's also you have to develop it and invest into that part of it, into developing your sales team. Just the other day, I think I mentioned sales team is a machine. And it's, you need to give it oil, you need to tune it up, you need to maintain it, you need to keep an eye on it. If not, then it kind of does what it was once on its own. And it's not, as you said, it's not about doing the whip. It's really, what is our mission? What's our vision? Let's do it together as a team. And again, it's just my thoughts, No,
I love that, because I just spoke with a customer about that topic last week. Mm-hmm. And they asked me, like, what is culture? And I took that example that you just said. Your company is the chain. Culture is the oil. That's it.
That's it. And you have, again, I'm sorry, cliche, intentional. Being intentional, meaning to do it and following through and having that vision. So my final question, and I'm using it as my theme of the year, is what question would you challenge the floral industry to ask themselves this year, especially after COVID, wherever the future is going? What would that be?
I think whatever goal you have, whatever you say you're going to do, how bad do you really want it? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get it? Now, sacrifice always sounds like something like harsh. But if you really want company culture, the question is, how bad do you want it? And what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice 2-hour meetings that are useless? Are you willing to sacrifice that? Or are you willing to sacrifice other things? What are some of the things that you can stop doing? Some of the things that you need to learn? What are some of the things you need to unlearn, polish, reduce, increase, right? But the first question is, how bad do you want it? Like when I do business with companies and they tell me like, yeah, we'd like to improve the employee experience. Okay, how bad do you want that to happen? Like, tell me how bad. Because if you just want it a little bit, like, I can do whatever you like here and I can give all the courses and all the action tools to get it done. But if you as the owner don't really want it, I know that's not going to happen. So my key question, and it's a question I'm asking myself a lot too, with any project I do, is how bad do you want it? Because that's the thing that makes you wake up at 3 in the morning and get to work. And I'm not asking everybody to get up at 3 in the morning, but I lately I wake up at 3:33. That's why I have breathing, by the way. There's a reason behind the 3.
Okay.
How bad do you want it?
3:33 in the morning you wake up?
Yeah, that's like sometimes people might see a newsletter from me at 3-ish in the morning. It's like when I wake up. The reason I wake up at that time is because like I have this dream, and it's like, hey man, you really want it, so get up and get to work. And that's something natural. It's not something I put an alarm for. So if you really want it bad enough, I guarantee you will have the culture. You will take this industry to a whole new level. So if you redefine the standards, okay, how bad do you want to have that? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get it?
I know I should do this because it was supposed to be my final question, but there's a question that I asked you the other day and you answered it in a very cool way. ROI. How do you know what the ROI of company culture is? Because that might be, what's my investment? I'm not going to invest whatever, how do you
Yeah.
know ROI, and what is ROI when it comes to company culture, emotional intelligence, empathy, and all that?
That's the question you asked me the other time we were talking together, and and that came out natural. I just said, like, what's the ROI of my mother then? If you ask me that question, the details she showed me, the standards she set me, the rules she set in my house, and the example she gave to me. Right. I think big part of my mom is the business that I have today. Details, customer experience, employee experience, all those things. And if you look at the other side, if you look at my wife, how do you put the ROI on my wife? Right? Of showing me empathy. If there's one of the people that has taught me empathy, right, is my wife. Right. And sometimes calm down and not have this anger management that I had 10 years ago. What's the ROI of all those teachings and learnings I had along the way? That's priceless. Maybe that's a MasterCard advertisement, which say like some things are priceless, but when it comes to culture, it's priceless. If you look at the greatest companies within the world, if you look at Elon Musk and the way they do things at SpaceX, if you look at whatever brand you like, these higher, bigger brands, they really have a highly well-defined and structured culture. It's something that's not easy to measure. It's not easy to measure. Now we understand some of the metrics to do it. But a part of the metrics, the culture of how they do these things, and because of the culture they have, they come up with these crazy ideas, or they have the team working like full speed. It's priceless. You can't put an ROI to that because it's priceless. And like I say, the chain doesn't work without the oil. It's going to break.
And
And you need
it's a
to
gift
oil it at high frequency.
it's a gift that keeps on giving, I guess. Once you put that seed, it's hard to measure the investment in there. But I do
Definitely.
believe that there's a ROI on morale too, because all this creates better morale, which in turn more productivity, which in turn more sales. But Bart, again, thank you so much for joining me, man. Thank you for your time, your information, you're willing to share, and I truly appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Thanks for having me. But I have a last question for you.
Oh,
Why the Bloom Show? Why the Bloom Show, and why now?
gosh, the Bloom Show, because I've always believed that we need to communicate throughout all sectors. We have a tendency of believing that kind of, one sector's divided from the other. The florists are doing their thing. Oh, it's a lack of empathy, you could say. So one of my goals is really to connect us all throughout the industry and to learn from others. We need to be more like other industries that are willing to share what's working for them. We saw something through COVID that really surprised a lot of people. We even saw people crying at points, and it was because we weren't prepared or expecting it. If we come together as a community within the floral community, we'll be more empowered, because that intelligence, information, experiences could empower all of us and make sure that we move along and move this industry forward. It's not that it's a dying industry. It's an amazing industry. We've had more growth than we expected, but I think we could do it all together. And then the Bloom Show just goes with New Bloom Solutions, but that's the purpose, is really to innovate, connect, and inspire the floral industry through community, through connection, and through innovation. Thanks for asking.
I love that community. Well, thanks for having me. Love to everybody out there, and hope to
That's
see
awesome,
everybody
man.
soon. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Bye bye.
Have a great day, man. Bye-bye. So again, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you. I got a message here from a buddy saying very good points. Thank you for joining. Next time, ask questions. But again, the show is here to share unselfishly, to really learn from others, other experts, from ourselves, as from ourselves and your peers in our industry. So that is very important for me, to connect all those together. Again, don't forget that next week we're having Barry Gottlieb, another expert in employee development. I've written a few books, pretty amazing. Many of us know him. We're very familiar with Barry Gottlieb, real cool guy, very empathetic from my connections with him. So please join us as well. Don't forget, sorry to go cliche, subscribe, like, comment, and share below. That always just helps us out a lot along the way. And if you need any information, follow us at Instagram, which is New Bloom Solutions. On LinkedIn, you could could find me. Then there's www.newbloomsolutions.com for any information. We develop websites and we do digital marketing and business consulting as well. So again, thank you for your time. See you next week and have a great one. Let me figure out how to do this. And here we go with the bye-bye.